Glen Hodgson, and I'm very happy to announce him today. He's the founder and CEO of the platform Freelance Movement, which is one of the biggest movements in Northern Europe. Works on topics like digitalization or future of work, like core aspects. And he's talking about EU regulatory framework and the platform Worker Rights Directive. So a warm welcome for Glen Hodgson.
Thank you very much. Well, thank you very much indeed. Thanks for the introduction. And it really is an honor and a pleasure to be here in Berlin and being invited to speak at this event today. And I'll be talking a little bit about the EU regulatory framework and also the Platform Worker Rights Directive in itself, which has just been finalized, but also say a little bit about the best approach for Germany as well within this in terms of implementing the legislation, but also looking at some of the broader themes that are in play at the moment for the future, and also some recommendations for freelancers in the current paradigm that we have in the German setting. So the rise of freelancing has brought about substantial changes in the labor market dynamics. Traditional employment models characterized by these longer-term contracts, traveling to an office or a physical facility, the set hierarchies, but also the established roles. These are increasingly being challenged. And instead, we're witnessing more of this shift towards a more flexible and agile workforce that is project-based. And many companies are now relying on this blend of in-house employees, consultants, and freelancers to meet their business and organizational requirements. And this trend has really led to the emergence of more of a project economy and portfolio careers, where individuals engage in more the short-term project-based arrangements. And regarding this policy context, the rise in platform work, and particularly the sight of a lot of ride-hailing and food delivery couriers across Europe, was kind of the catalyst for the start of the need to have legislation. And in December 2021, we actually had the proposal that came out from the Commission. And the European Commission, from their perspective, states that over 28 million people are actually employed by one or more platforms in Europe at the moment. And by 2025, this figure is set to increase to 43 million, and the figures are rising very, very quickly within that. But this rather negative image of gig work as it was at the time, and also the platform economy and even freelancing, this is something that's sadly being created by the media and certain politicians, political groups. Many politicians and the media depict this as something that's low-skilled and low-paid. This image of men on scooters and bikes delivering pizzas in the rain for very little money is kind of the image that's been put out there increasingly. And of course, this is just sort of a very small part of the reality of the future of work. And many, though, don't see this and still don't want to see this. And there's a strong feeling that people need to be protected. We've heard this over the past couple of days already in some of the sessions that we've had. And this idea of issuing control rather than allowing individuals to earn money when, where, and how they wish. And when the legislation was proposed, there was a major concern that a number of workers across Europe are actually being misclassified as independent contractors when really they should be seen as employees. And the discussions were incredibly fractious for the last couple of years over this, particularly in the European Parliament and the European Employment and Social Committee. There was risks that they wanted to basically prevent and ban freelancing in the European context and push everyone into a kind of a traditional 9-to-5 framework. And many countries were also against this, the text that was put out. So we had a lot of a stalemate for a long time. But in March of this year, we reached a compromise. And now it's looking like September of 2024, we will actually have the formal adoption version of the platform work directive. And then EU member states will have 2 years to be able to implement the legislation. And to get this agreement at the last minute, really the substance has been taken out of the directive to a certain perspective, particularly in the main areas of the presumption of employment, also on algorithmic management, how these are actually functioning at the moment. And these areas will be left up to the member states to decide, come up with their own rules at the national level. And given that the directive in its current form is quite vague, it leaves significant room for national discretion when implementation begins. And therefore, we need to be active at the national level on lobbying and shaping the national texts at the earliest opportunity. And this is sort of giving a helping hand to the decision makers at the local level about what needs to be done. And to do so, we'll be looking to work with some of you as well in terms of highlighting and amplifying the voice of freelancers through petitions, work, reports, and studies, but also to be holding workshops and events like this one with national decision makers and stakeholders to be involved and try and shape the implementation process. So given the legislation as it stands at the moment, we want to sort of look at what this means for Germany in this setting. And I think one thing that's important is this idea of definitions. They're currently quite vague at the moment and expansive on what is a digital labor platform. And this really significantly broadens the scope of the directive. This is something that needs to be clarified. If not, then potentially thousands of independent workers from across Germany will and risk being unintentionally misclassified as employees. And this covers everything from IT developers, of course, all the way through to photographers, musicians, and artists. Basically everyone who uses online platforms in some shape or form to connect with clients. And these platforms which facilitate the provision of services could be inadvertently be presumed as employers, therefore putting unintended legal and operational constraints on the professionals in this basis. There's also this idea of that there shouldn't be the general presumption of employment. The decision on whether individuals should be seen to be employees or not should be something that maybe we could look at in terms of criteria. So if you meet 3 out of 7 specific criteria in the German setting, then you are seen as an employee, or also as an individual. If you can say, I want to be an independent, I don't want to be employed, there should be the opportunity for you to kind of opt in or opt out in that kind of way. Basically, we don't want to see legislation forcing millions of European entrepreneurs, freelancers, and also one-person companies into employment relationships against their will. And this forced shift from an autonomous business model to a rigid employment structure, this would be something that would really undermine independent talent and really severely diminish the flexibility and freedom that is fundamental to why so many of us actually choose freelancing and platform work. So it's really why, for us, classification should not be left vague. This could also lead to significant court cases and uncertainty in determining the employment status of workers, which of course this would be great work for lawyers, very profitable for them, but the situation will be expensive, time consuming, and also unwieldy for individuals, but also platforms themselves. The third part that's interesting within the legislation itself will be the idea of algorithmic management, but how this shouldn't mean universal human oversight within this setting, because while the provisions to prevent practices such as robo-firing, of course these are very good things, it's still vital that Directive does not require every single algorithmic decision to be supervised by a human. And also the efficiency and benefits of freelancing, platform work, and the digital economy as a whole often rely, as we know, on these automated processes. And this requirement of human oversight would also introduce introduce undue delays, more costs, and also increased operational procedures and unnecessary bureaucracy, which we're trying to avoid. It's also be unworkable from a practical perspective, and as such, really, what we're promoting is that the Platform Work Directive should follow the AI Act, and this regulation adopts a very clear risk-based system whereby human oversight is only required if there's a high risk to health and safety for individuals. We also think it's important that this maintains parity with the GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulation, and doesn't go too far down this route either. So to go a little bit further about the broader themes for the future, we're going to take a little bit of a deeper dive before your questions into the need to harness the power of digitalization, but also accepting the role of AI, and also the importance of talent attraction. And on the basis of harnessing the power of digitalization, this is something, of course, I think we all agree is imperative, that companies are embracing remote work and digital tools and urging employees to adapt and maximize productivity. And this kind of as-a-service trend is expanding, and business and also individuals are really sort of getting behind this. And digitalization is also creating the new business models and industries, the jobs and opportunity, and some things that are, shall we say, forgotten and ignored in the negative narratives that are being spread about the platform economy and gig work. And to really empower the future of work, policymakers should be engaging with us, engaging with freelancers to take the temperature and get our views, but also be looking to platform workers and entrepreneurs, breaking free from the outdated perspectives to try and unleash this social and economic potential, and really understand that it's time for Europe's labor markets to evolve in the right way. And similarly, the idea of accepting the role of artificial intelligence, given that it's all around us, it's growing exponentially, and individuals will need to work with machines and systems, develop this symbiosis of their jobs and roles, or else risk them becoming obsolete in the labor market of the not too distant future. And similarly, companies and organizations will need to understand the potential of AI and to adopt the processes as well as integrate technology in order to remain competitive as well as increase efficiencies. And this is something we're seeing sort of being rolled out and playing catch up on an ongoing basis. And similarly, we mark down the idea of the importance of talent attraction as well. This is for countries, but also cities, because promoting tourism and inward investment have been a long-standing focus for countries, cities, and regions. However, attracting this talent in terms of broadening this to digital nomads, fractional workers, as well as full-time employees, is something that's equally crucial and something that needs to be thought about, because open talent is essential for the future of work, but also few regions are realizing this potential. And of course, Berlin already has a great starting point in that the perspective, being a hub and being an interesting place for individuals to meet up. And these talented individuals fuel the economic growth, spur innovation and entrepreneurship, and also the job creation. They also enhance the competitiveness of the regions, as well as attracting the global networks and the trade opportunities. And this reputation as a talent hub lures not only the individuals themselves, but as on the back of it, the businesses, the investors, and the broader stakeholder community to produce this more dynamic and thriving ecosystem. So looking at simplifies procedures for residency, taxation, and social security are also in this, and also looking at sort of one-stop shops to be able to help individuals to find their way through the maze. All these things are really important to attract the needed skills and expertise. And I just want to sort of finish by going from sort of legislation to some of the few of the things that we've been seeing through our association in terms of the themes that are set for recommendations for freelancers that will look to be important now and into the future in terms of profiting and thriving on the labor market of today. One of the first things that's important for companies is to build the importance of what's actually happening. And for us as freelancers, of course, as most of us are aware, it's building the online presence, creating a role for ourselves, marketing what we actually do, creating that sort of vision of what the knowledge, skills, and expertise we have, the value we can bring to organizations, companies in the marketplace more broadly. It's also this element of lifelong learning, and it's reskilling and upskilling on an ongoing basis. It's not a case of taking a pause of 2-3 years and starting again, but adding new skills, evolving on an ongoing basis. Since there's more of these demands on personal effort and also individual responsibility in this basis, and continually upgrading skills and staying relevant is part of this, so that workers can deliver this value, remain flexible, and almost have this always in beta mindset, which is something that is really helpful to be able to manage and be able to thrive in the labor market of today, but also tomorrow. Also, a fundamental issue that we put here is the idea of education systems across Europe needing to change and evolve and adapt, really equipping people with the knowledge, skills, and expertise that they require. And Germany's no exception in this regard. And the pace of change is accelerating exponentially, but the education systems and the teaching profession tends to be still quite traditional, maybe in a lot of cases not keeping up with the reality. So this step change will be required at every level of education, while attracting, of course, the right competent and engaged teachers and education professionals. Companies and organizations as well, we've talked about this quite a bit over the last couple of days, but it's vital for them as well to have a freelancer strategy, how to integrate all the talent into their organization, putting that focus on motivating, having inclusion, but also sharing the vision, information, and ideas, regardless of the employment form. And this really goes hand in hand with corporate openness and distributed workforces as well. And for companies sort of now and into the future to be successful, they need to be able to sort of motivate and integrate the permanent employees, but also the freelancers, interim staff, contractors, get them engaged, pointing in the same direction and working towards the shared goals of the organization. So blended teams is something that will have to be sort of looked at more and more in the future. And as we see this in more and more of a model of organizations having a smaller core team of full-time employees, complemented by contractors and freelancers that can be brought in to fulfill specific tasks on a value and a results orientated basis. It's also within this the time to revisit the 9-to-5 model, which is still quite popular but has its roots in the Industrial Revolution and needs to be updated to meet the demands of freedom and flexibility. And we've been hearing a few of the sessions today about how companies, organizations, both big and small, are trying to get more flexible and have models that work to be able to integrate the talent that they need when they need it with minimal pushback from the organizational structures. The idea of talent matching is something that comes up more and more as well in terms of its importance to be able to sort out and filter the talent. We've been hearing as well about how do I know that the freelancers I'm bringing in can actually sort of do the job. And I think this filtering and sorting is important to be valued to companies, have the right fit, have the right talent, skills, but also the corporate fit, investing in vetting, onboarding, and putting in place these quality assurance measures to ensure that the standard of the talent that are offered is met. And traditional recruitment companies have been pretty poor at this, but we see some of the names and the players here who are filling that void very happily. Same time, I think that it's good to mention the idea of supporting multi-apping. In the same way, talent should not be restricted to one 9-to-5 job. Individuals should not be locked into a closed relationship with just one platform. They should have the ability to sort of use the tools, the channels they need to be able to offer value. And I think at the same time, the last point here I think is interesting to look at, and something that we're going into in more detail in our study over the summer. With changing labor markets and demands on open talent comes new demands for management styles and also leadership that reflects and is in tune with this. Leaders will need to be more of a coach rather than the boss. I know in Germany with the kind of traditional hierarchical structures, this is going to be a challenge, but it's something that needs to happen because survival is not guaranteed. And I think that there's going to be big changes that will be needed in the very near future to be able to offer that, adapting the style to the talent around them, being more tailored to the network of expertise that exist, and really have to be a little bit more flexible in terms of approaching most of the colleagues and partners to get the best out of them. Now, with that, I would like to sort of, in my time limit, just basically be able to sort of hand over, answer any questions, thoughts, ideas that you have about this, or any trends that you're seeing from the marketplace as well. Would be very interesting for me to get your feedback and hear what's going forwards.
Yes, we already have some questions.
That's good. Ask me anything and I'll tell you the truth as well.
Okay, I start with the first one. In the new framework, how would someone now be deemed an employee, and does the new framework sufficiently support those who really should be protected?
Great question, and I think it is. So what's going to happen is, because the only way they could get an agreement is basically saying it will be left up to the national level what is an employee. So that will be left up to the sort of German implementation, how this will be decided. And this will be crucial that, of course, the big BDI and the trade unions are involved, but for freelancers to have a voice in this so they can put forward what they need and actually state, this is what I want, I don't need protecting. But at the same time, as you say, it's very, very important that people maybe who are forced to carry a bag, wear a uniform, would like to be employed, but are actually just classed as an independent contractor, so they don't have the social provisions. That's not the future. That's something that's going to die out because no one wants to try and game the system, and it's giving a very negative image to the whole sector as well. So that's something happened. At the moment, are they fully protected? I think there are still areas that need to be improved, and I think the problem is addressing the people who do need the protection, as opposed to dragging down everyone and putting them into a traditional 9-to-5 bucket.
Mm-hmm. What is the freelance movement and what is their purpose?
Freelance Movement. We've founded about 4 years ago, mainly to look at gig economy, platform economy work. Now we have the full range of future of work organizations. So what we're 52 companies, platforms, and organizations, and deliberately very broad. So we've got everything from Uber, Bolt, Volt at one end in terms of food delivery and ride-hailing, all the way through to the insurance, financial, medical professionals, but also platforms for artists, models, and musicians. So the full range of sectors and freelancers and independent contractors within that as well. So, the biggest in Europe on that. 3 main functions that we have. The first is to educate about the future of work through events, through papers, ideas, engagement with decision makers, politicians. The second part is to actively lobby. So we've been very active on the Platform Work Directive in Brussels. And the third part is actually creating the ecosystem for companies and organizations to buy product services off each other, as well as supporting freelancers at the same time.
Mm-hmm. And one last question, as you were talking about AI also, a lot of people are afraid to lose their jobs because of AI one day.
Yes.
Are there already some studies how that might change, or are they working on restrictions or laws to protect the people?
Not so far. I mean, there's a lot of studies saying about how that AI is coming in, people will be displaced, but it's looking like that for every job that is lost, there'll be 3 or 4 created. It just means it's going to be different jobs, it's going to be different roles. And saying that AI kills jobs is like saying that medicine is bad because it puts grave diggers out of a job because there's less people dying. It's not a sensible thing to approach. But it's going to need, individuals are going to have to be flexible, they're going to have to adapt, and they're going to have to have the skills, knowledge, and expertise to be able to be successful and have value in the future of work.
And the last one, what's the plan for simplifying taxes, providing free discounted SVS, and providing perks that corps or business benefit from, but hardly any love to freelancers?
I think that one of the problems that we've always seen with these special schemes, special arrangements, tax breaks, that it's had the effect of actually sort of splitting up the marketplace. So it creates something that's short-term that seems advantageous, but it almost creates this 2-tier system. So we went back to this system of freelancers are still seen as like a little bit below people who can't really get a proper job, therefore they're freelancing. And having these special criteria kind of puts down that route. What we're seeing more and more is actually just have a level playing field. We want to be able to earn money when, where, and how we want. Don't push us in this kind of thing, but we don't want special break, but don't hinder us and give us the proper barriers that we're not needed.
Okay, thank you so much.
Pleasure.
Thank you so much, Glen, and a round of applause, please.
Thank you.
We just take a 5-minute break.